Rangers don't talk about the restricted zones, not because we're protecting the parks, but because we're protecting you. Tonight, you'll hear 3 true incidents from rangers who went into places the public is never supposed to see, places that still generate reports we can't file, sounds we can't explain, and footage we weren't supposed to keep. If you're new here, subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're listening from. At 1:06 AM, someone started screaming for help from inside Bunker 3, but when we opened the door 3 minutes later, the bunker was empty and the screaming didn't stop. I worked as a ranger at a national forest that used to house a string of Cold War era bunkers. The public doesn't know about most of them. They aren't mapped, they're not online, and you'll never stumble across them accidentally. They're deep in a restricted zone surrounded by motion sensors and seismic monitors. The kind of place you only enter with clearance and a partner. There are 6 bunkers total, 5 are empty, rusting, half collapsed, but Bunker 3 is intact. Every ranger who's worked here long enough has heard something strange from that structure. Metal echoing when there's no wind, moaning vibrations from underground. Once, a ranger swore he heard laughing, but refused to elaborate. I never believed any of it, well, until the night we heard the screaming. It was 1:06 AM. I remember the exact time because our seismic sensors registered impact, heavy pounding on metal coming from Bunker 3. Then it came over the radio. Unit 6, do you copy? We have possible entrapment, human screams detected inside B3. My partner Lewis and I were closest. Protocol says wait for backup, but those screams, they weren't just loud, they were panicked, desperate. It sounded like someone was clawing at the walls from the inside. We ran. The bunker doors are accessed through a short staircase that drops 6 feet under. As soon as we reached it, the noise hit us like a shockwave. Pounding fists slamming the steel door, someone crying, screaming for help, gasping like they were suffocating. Lewis yelled, "We're opening, just hold on." But something about those screams froze me. It wasn't just the words, it was the acoustics. There shouldn't be that much echo. A human voice in a 10 by 15 concrete room doesn't sound like that. And a person who's suffocating doesn't have the lung power to scream that loudly. Still, a voice is a voice. Someone needed help. To unlock the bunker, 2 keys are required. I had one, Lewis had the other. We inserted them simultaneously, turned. The screaming cut out instantly, like someone flipped a switch. The bunker's heavy door groaned open, cold air drifted out. Colder than the night around us. My flashlight beam cut through the dark. The room was empty, no footprints old or new, no disturbed dust, no dragging marks, no equipment missing, nothing. But as soon as we stepped inside, the door slammed shut behind us, hard enough to shake dust from the ceiling. The screams started again, only now they weren't coming from a single point. They came from all 4 walls, bouncing around us like a tornado of voices. Someone pounding from behind the far wall. Someone else shouting, "Please, get me out!" A third voice sobbing in the corner. Lewis spun in circles, light trembling in his hands. "There's nobody here," he whispered. "Where are they?" I forced myself to move towards the far wall where the pounding was the loudest. My hand shook as I pressed it against the concrete. It was ice cold, but it was moving. Not vibrating, not shifting, breathing. The wall gently expanded, then contracted, like a rib cage. I yanked my hand back just as something on the wall exhaled. The screams stopped. A low, deep voice replaced them. Not moaning, not crying, just breathing with us, matching our rhythm. Inhale, exhale, perfectly synced. Lewis snapped. He started ramming the door, shouting for backup. I used my radio. It crackled with static but got through. 2 minutes later, our supervisor and 2 officers sprinted down the stairs. The moment they opened the door, the breathing stopped. Silence. One of the officers swept the room, saw the dust, the stale air, and the completely untouched surfaces. "There's nobody here," he said flatly. We didn't argue, but we were shaking. The next day we submitted our incident report and handed over our body cams. That's when everything got worse. The audio from inside the bunker recorded the screams, but not the way we heard them. On the footage, the voice wasn't saying, "Help me!" It was saying our names, repeating them, whispering them, sometimes even perfectly syncing with our breathing. In reverse, we inhaled, it exhaled. Our supervisor shut the computer and dismissed us. He told us not to discuss it with anyone, including other rangers. Bunker 3 was sealed permanently 2 weeks later. Concrete poured over the door, sensors removed, area declared off limits. Lewis quit 1 month after. I stayed. But every winter, during temperature shifts, the seismic monitors still picked something up near the spot. A slow, rhythmic push against the earth, like someone trying to breathe through concrete. And once, just once, when I hiked past that night while off duty, I heard a voice through the frozen ground whisper my name. Not in my head, not in my memory, in my ear, as if it was standing right beside me. The forest section I patrol was shut down after a woman vanished there 11 years ago. Last winter, at 3:14 AM, our thermal drone picked up her standing perfectly still, facing the camera, and the thermal showed her eye sockets as 2 cold, empty holes. I've been a ranger for 14 years, and the only reason I'm telling this story anonymously is because I still have nightmares about that footage. The area involved is a piece of the northern sector we call Sector 6. It was closed after a woman named Emily Roden disappeared there in 2013. No body, no tracks, just her abandoned pack and a shoe. For years, that section had been a dead zone. We don't send volunteers, hikers or trainees in. Not after dark, not during storms, not ever. But we still patrol it with drones. The incident happened in early January. The air temperature was around 9 Fahrenheit. Nothing warm should have been walking around at that hour. At 3:14 AM, our thermal drone operator radioed in. "I've got a heat signature in the closed zone. Female, standing still, facing the drone." At first we thought it was a glitch. Thermals glitch all the time in the cold. Then the figure tilted its head upwards, like it was staring directly into the lens, and all of us went dead quiet, because human faces show up bright on thermal, but hers didn't. Where her eyes should have been, there were 2 black voids, cold spots, colder than the air, colder than anything natural. The drone operator kept repeating, "Why aren't the eyes hot? I don't understand." We dispatched a team of 3. I was lead. When we entered Sector 6, the forest felt wrong. Not dangerous exactly, just watched. Even the radio static sounded like breathing. The drone hovered overhead, tracking her position. "She hasn't moved," the operator said. "She's still facing you." But when we reached the coordinates, she wasn't there. Just a patch of warm earth still giving off a heat signature. A perfect kneeling imprint, like someone had been praying on the ground. Except she had been standing on the drone footage. Standing, not kneeling. I shined my light into the tree line and saw something hanging on a branch. A long strand of wet, dark hair, frozen at the end. I don't scare easily, but something about that hair made my stomach drop. There hadn't been rain or melt water for days. There was no reason for it to be wet. The drone operator radioed us again, voice shaking. "She's 20 minutes behind you." We turned. Nothing, just trees. Then we heard footsteps, slow, deliberate, crunching snow in a wide circle around us. But we saw no shapes, no shadows, nothing human. I raised my light again, and for a split second, between two pines, I saw her. A woman, skin frostbitten pale, hair hanging flat around her face. She was staring at me, only she wasn't. Because when I aimed the light at her eyes, the beam went straight into empty sockets, like her eyes had been scooped out. I blinked and she vanished, not walked away, not hid, just gone. The drone operator screamed over comms, "She's under you!" Snow exploded at my feet like something had crawled out of the ground. We bolted back to the surface road, not stopping until the drone operator physically met us by the truck. He showed us the footage. The woman didn't walk, didn't run. She crawled, on all fours, moving with this jerky, inverted gant, like her joints bent the wrong way. And just before she disappeared from the last thermal frame, she turned her head too far, like an owl, swiveling around. I still get chills remembering the shape of her mouth, stretched wider than human. The next day, the park surface, FBI and search and rescue combed Sector 6. They found nothing, not her, not footprints, no clothing. They found a broken mandible, a lower jawbone, halfway lodged into the roots of the cider tree. DNA confirmed it belonged to Emily Roden, the woman who vanished 11 years earlier. But here's the part I can't explain. She didn't die 11 years ago. Her jaw had weathering marks indicating it had been exposed to the elements only 5 years before we found it, meaning she was alive for at least 6 years after she disappeared. So who, or what, did we see on the thermal? What was crawling around the sector at 3 AM? And why did she have no eyes? I still patrol that area. I still hear crunching snow behind me on the windless nights, and every winter, the drone operator swears he sees her thermal signature again. That same featureless face, those same dark voids. If anyone watching this ever hikes deep wilderness, when you feel like something's watching you from the trees, don't look back, because some things follow movement. We heard a child crying for help inside the red zone, an area so dangerous we don't perform rescues after dark. But when we shouted back, the child repeated our words in the exact same tone and then copied our footsteps. I work search and rescue for a national park that I'll never name publicly. Every forest has its problem areas, but ours had something worse. A stretch of dense pine and ravines we called the Red Zone. There are no official trails there, no campsites, no cabins, just trees and silence. The rule among rangers was simple: never enter the Red Zone after sunset. It wasn't superstition. Too many incidents have happened there. Campers found torn out of their tents, hikers reporting a second version of themselves watching them, voices calling for help even when everyone's accounted for, and thermal drones picking up heat signatures that moved on all fours. But the largest incident was the disappearance of a 7-year-old girl whose body was never recovered. Her last recording sound was a faint "help" picked up on a ranger's mic just before the signal died. After that, the red zone was restricted, but that didn't stop the night I broke protocol. It was late October, around 11:50 p.m. I was doing routine perimeter checks when I heard it, distinct child's voice. "Help! I'm lost!" I froze so hard I stopped breathing. We don't have kids in the park that late. There were no missing persons, no vehicles at the trailhead. Still, the voice came again, louder, wavering, exhausted. "Help! Someone!" My partner, Reyes, came jogging up the path towards me, wide-eyed. "You heard it too?" he asked. I nodded. We stood perfectly still, listening. Then the voice cried again, but this time from deeper inside the red zone. Reyes whispered, "We shouldn't go in there." I whispered back, "But it's a kid." That was the mistake. We crossed the boundary tape and entered the tree line. For the first 20 yards, everything felt normal. Crickets, wind, tree branches knocking. Then it all dropped out at once. Every sound cut off, like someone pressed mute on the forest. We stopped moving. Behind us, our own footsteps continued. Reyes spun around, flashlight sweeping the path. "Did you hear that?" he whispered. I nodded, but before we could react, the child's voice called out again, closer now. "I'm here!" We both raised our lights. Nothing. We pushed deeper. Every time we stepped, a half beat later we heard the same step behind us. Not similar, identical. Same rhythm, same weight, same cadence. Reyes whispered, "It's copying us." Then we heard something worse. The child spoke again, but not the way kids speak. It repeated Reyes' exact sentence. "It's copying us." Same pitch, same breath pattern, same tremble. Reyes' face went pale. "We're leaving," he said, but the forest had other plans. A shape flickered between two pines, not running, jerking, like a body being moved by invisible strings. My throat tightened, then the voice whispered right behind us, "Leaving." We bolted, branches snapped on both sides of us. Something large was keeping pace but not running upright. We could hear the scrape of limbs dragging across leaves. Too many limbs. We made it back towards the clearing where the red zone begins. But as soon as we broke through the trees, Reyes stopped so abruptly I nearly crashed into him. He raised a shaking hand and pointed. At the far end of the clearing stood a child, barefoot, back turned, hands at her sides. She swayed slightly, like she was shivering. "Hello?" Reyes called out. The child repeated it perfectly. "Hello?" The hair on my neck stood straight up. "Don't speak it," I whispered. Reyes took one step forward. The child copied the same step, same foot, same pressure, a perfect mirror. "Reyes, we're going," I said through my teeth. He nodded slowly. We took one simultaneous step backwards. So did she. Another step. She matched it. I was about to turn and run when Reyes whispered, "Look at her shoulders." They weren't moving like a child's. They weren't rising and falling with breath. They weren't pulling upward and backwards like something beneath the skin was trying to separate. The child tilted her head. Her neck cracked. Then her face came into view. There were no eyes, just two stretched cavities like melted wax. The mouth was worse, a gaping black oval hanging open far too wide, like the jaw wasn't attached. And then she spoke again, but not in a child's voice. This time it was in my voice. "Help, I'm lost." Not mimicking the child, mimicking me. We ran so hard I nearly tore the tendons in my knees. Behind us, I could hear the thing crawling, fast on too many limbs, slapping the ground like wet meat. But the moment we crossed out of the red zone, the sound stopped. We both collapsed on the gravel. Reyes began shaking uncontrollably. I threw up. We filed a restricted incident report. Management sealed off more land. We were told to use discretion and avoid dramatising auditory anomalies. 2 weeks later, Reyes quit. He moved across the country. I stayed. I still patrol near the boundary sometimes. I still hear voices calling for help inside the trees. But the worst happened last winter. At 2:41 AM, when I was off duty and sitting alone in my cabin, the park radio on my desk crackled to life. No one touched it. It wasn't even powered on. Through the static, in a perfect copy of my own voice, I heard, "Help, I'm lost." Then the sound of footsteps, my own, walking right up to my door.